The galaxy watched and laughed. Across the shimmering expanse of the Orion Rift, news feeds replayed the same image over and over, a small rust-colored vessel drifting toward the Velari neutral zone. It was slow, almost painfully so, crawling forward like a wounded insect. Its hull was scarred and pitted by micrometeorite impacts. Its engines sputtered unevenly, and its exterior plating bore the unmistakable marks of age. It was human-made, and it looked ancient. The Velari Empire, rulers of more than 200 star systems and masters of quantum fleet construction, saw the pathetic little craft as nothing more than a curiosity. The Imperial Council gathered in the Hall of Ascendancy, their laughter echoing through the crystal chamber as holographic projections of the vessel spun slowly above them. "Is this truly Earth's offering?" sneered Admiral Korvath, his silver crest twitching with amusement. "A rust bucket from their scrapyards? Perhaps they stole it from a museum." Another general chuckled. "I've seen better ships built by pre-warp scavengers." Across the galactic network, similar mockery rippled through millions of minds. Commentators and analysts called it a junk relic, a ghost ship, even a fossil of a forgotten age. Earth, barely a spacefaring civilization for 3 centuries, was still considered a minor power, tolerated but not respected. Their ships were clumsy, their weapons crude, their influence small, but this vessel, this thing, was beyond even that. It was embarrassing. And yet, as the laughter rolled on, a faint current of unease began to stir beneath the surface, because something about the ship was wrong. It wasn't transmitting any identification codes. No transponder beacons, no distress signals. It was silent, dead silent. It ignored every hail, every warning, every threat. The Velari patrol frigates shadowing it broadcasted over 100 commands to halt, all unanswered. And still, it moved, steady, silent, relentless. "Perhaps it's a derelict," suggested Commander Yalthun, his voice cautious. "Some ancient wreck drifting on residual power," but Admiral Korvath shook his head. "No, look, its course hasn't shifted by a fraction. That is not random drift. That is intent." The room fell silent for a moment as they studied the slow, deliberate trajectory on the holomap. The vessel was heading directly toward the Velari border, straight as an arrow. No deviation, no hesitation. Then the sensor officer spoke, and the room's laughter died. "Admiral, we just completed a deep scan of the ship's core." Korvath glanced at him, irritated. "And it's not fission, not fusion, not antimatter. We don't recognize the signature at all." The hall grew still. That was impossible. Every known civilization used one of those 3 energy sources. Anything else was either theoretical or forbidden. "What do you mean, not recognized?" Korvath demanded. "It's stable, contained, powerful, but it doesn't match any known drive signature. And there's more." The officer swallowed, as if unsure whether to continue. "The black box signal. We traced its timestamp. Admiral, the vessel's registry is over 1,000 years old." The silence that followed was absolute. 1,000 years. Impossible. Humanity had not even left its homeworld until 3 centuries ago. 1,000 years ago, they were still fighting wars with metal projectiles and fossil fuels. They didn't have orbital stations, let alone interstellar drives. "How can a human ship be 1,000 years old?" whispered Yalthun. "It can't," another officer muttered. "It must be a sensor error." But the scans repeated again and again. The result was the same. The registry code burned into the ship's deepest data layer, older than the Velari's first warp drive, older than half the empires in the Orion Arm, was unmistakably human. The galaxy's laughter stopped that day. In its place grew a different sound. Whispers. What was this thing? How could a civilization that had only just joined the galactic community have a ship that predates the Empire itself? And why was that ship now moving with unwavering purpose into Velari space? The Velari fleet tightened its formation along the border. Dozens of warships, gleaming titans of alloy and plasma, repositioned to block the intruder's path. Still, the little rust-colored craft did not slow. "Send another hail," Korvath ordered. "Already sent." Still no response. "Target its engines. Disable it if necessary. Weapons locked on." The order was given. But just as the first ion cannons powered up, the ship's image flickered, and the Velari fleet's sensor grid began to collapse. What's happening? Barked Korvath. Unknown interference, Admiral. Our targeting systems just went offline. Shields are dropping. Communications are being scrambled. Panic rippled through the fleet. It wasn't an attack. There were no energy signatures, no weapon discharges. Yet their systems were failing, as if some unseen hand was plucking them apart, thread by thread. And through it all, the little ship continued on, steady and silent. The Council reconvened in emergency session. No one laughed now. Even the most arrogant senators spoke in hushed tones, as if afraid the ship might hear them. Could this be a probe? One suggested. Or an AI relic from before their species rose? Asked another. Maybe it's not human at all, someone whispered, but the registry data was undeniable. It was built by Earth. It bore their language, their structure, their engineering. There was no mistake. Across the galaxy, intelligence networks scrambled for answers. Old archives were searched. Forgotten transmissions decrypted. Every mention of a human project that could explain such a vessel was dragged from history's dust. And deep within a classified database on Earth itself, a name flickered on an ancient mission record, Project Nomad. But the details were gone, erased or lost centuries ago. Even Earth's leaders had no memory of it. Meanwhile, the ship drifted ever closer. Patrols fell back, sensor buoys malfunctioned, even automated defenses powered down as it approached, as though reality itself was bending around it. Every warning was ignored. Every threat meaningless, Admiral, said Yalthun quietly, watching the slow, unstoppable blip crawl toward the borderline. If that ship crosses into Imperial space, protocol demands we destroy it. Korvath stared at the screen for a long time, his talons drumming against the armrest. Tell me, he asked softly, how do you destroy something you do not understand? No one had an answer. The rust-colored ship, pathetic, ancient, and forgotten, moved on, undeterred by the might of the Velari Empire. Somewhere deep within its silent hull, something pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat waiting to be heard, and across the stars, as fear slowly replaced laughter, one truth became impossible to ignore. Something ancient was waking, something built by human hands a millennium ago, and the galaxy was about to learn the meaning of human patience. For 3 standard days, the ship drifted in silence. The Velari Empire had mobilized its most powerful fleets. 200 warships formed a living wall at the border, their hulls bristling with plasma cannons and singularity torpedoes. Behind them, planetary defense grids hummed to readiness, and orbital mines awaited detonation. The Empire had prepared for war, yet no enemy came. Only the small rust-colored ship continued its patient approach, as if none of that power mattered. In the control center of the dreadnought Vengeance of Stars, Admiral Korvath had not slept. He watched the approaching vessel on the main view screen, a tiny, unimpressive silhouette against the void. Distance to the border? He asked, voice low. 2.4 million clicks, Admiral. Estimated crossing in 9 hours, Korvath nodded slowly. Maintain formation. Weapons ready, but do not fire without my order. The officers obeyed, though unease hung heavy in the command deck. No one spoke of what had happened to the previous patrols, how their systems had failed without explanation, how ships were left drifting like helpless debris. No one dared mention the strange hum that their sensors now picked up, a faint rhythmic signal pulsing from the alien core deep within the vessel. It was almost like a heartbeat. On Earth, half a galaxy away, the news reached the Council of Nations. The images of the relic ship dominated every broadcast. Most believed it was some kind of alien trick, a staged humiliation. But one woman, watching from a dusty underground archive in Old Geneva, felt her blood run cold. Dr. Mara Lee had spent 40 years studying forgotten space missions, old launch records, partial telemetry, scraps of data erased during Earth's centuries of war. When the first long-range scans of the mysterious ship appeared, she saw something no one else did. The hull plating, the alloy structure, even the faint burn marks on its thruster cones. They weren't alien. They were human. Not just human. Ancient, this can't be, she whispered, scrolling through a century-old file on her cracked tablet. It was heavily corrupted, most of it unreadable, but one fragment remained. Project Nomad, mission parameters, launch date 2347 CE. Objective, long-term autonomous exploration. Directive, wait, learn, adapt. Return when ready. Mara stared at the date. It was almost 1,000 years ago. Nomad? She breathed. She had read of it only in scattered rumors, a myth from humanity's forgotten dawn of interstellar flight. A ship launched before Earth even had a unified government, before it had colonies beyond Mars. Most historians dismissed it as legend. Yet here it was, real and alive, crossing a galactic border as if time itself meant nothing. He activated a secure comms line to the council chambers. "This isn't an alien weapon," she said as soon as the link opened. "It's ours, and it's been out there for a millennium." The council chamber fell silent. One delegate laughed nervously. "Impossible. Humanity didn't even have warp drive back then." "It didn't," Mara replied. "But they launched Nomad anyway, on a slow sublight trajectory. The plan was for it to evolve during its voyage. It was built with self-repairing systems, adaptive AIs and experimental nanotech, far beyond anything we understood then. Its creators designed it not to conquer, but to learn." "To learn?" another delegate asked. "For 1,000 years," Mara nodded. "And now it's coming back." Back at the Vilari border, fear spread quietly among the crew of the Vengeance of Stars. The closer the ship came, the stranger their instruments behaved. Communication arrays glitched. Gravity sensors fluctuated. Even timekeeping systems began to drift by microseconds. It was as if reality bent slightly around the ship, obeying laws no one had seen before. "Admiral," reported Sensor Officer Threll, "new scan results. The vessel's hull composition is changing." Korvath frowned. "Explain. It's not static metal. It's alive. Nanostructures shifting and adapting in real time. It's repairing damage from centuries of travel and improving itself." Another officer spoke up. "And the AI core, Admiral. It's active." "Very active. It's watching us." The bridge fell silent. Watching them? That idea, that this crude ancient vessel had the awareness and capability to observe their fleet, was more terrifying than any weapon. Korvath's second-in-command approached quietly. "Admiral, perhaps we should destroy it before it crosses the line. Protocol allows—" "No," Korvath's voice was firm. "We do not fire on what we do not understand. But, sir, it could be dangerous." "It is dangerous," Korvath interrupted, "but not in the way you think." His gaze lingered on the tiny ship creeping closer, its battered hull now glowing faintly with shifting patterns of light. It was old, yes. Weak, yes, but something about it, its silence, its patience, its unstoppable momentum, terrified him more than any fleet. This was not the behavior of a derelict. It was the behavior of something with a purpose. In a forgotten hangar on Mars, a retired engineer named Theo Carlin stared at the same broadcast and felt tears sting his eyes. He had grown up hearing stories about Nomad, the ghost ship of early humanity. His grandfather had even worked on the original project before it vanished. "They said it would never come back," Theo whispered, watching the live feed. "They said it was lost, but here it was, returning from a 1,000-year journey into the dark. Humanity had forgotten it. History had erased it. Yet Nomad had not forgotten humanity. Back on the Vengeance, the ship was now less than 1,000,000 kilometers from the border. It still hadn't slowed. It still hadn't spoken. Then suddenly, without warning, every Vilari vessel's long-range sensors went dark. "Report," Korvath shouted. "No response from the array. Our scans are blind." "Shields?" "Operational, but fluctuating." "Communications?" "Unstable." And then, for the first time, the ship responded. A single message blinked across every Vilari console. It was written not in their language, but in a crude, ancient human dialect, one not spoken in centuries. "The Nomad has returned." The message repeated 3 times, then vanished. No further transmission followed. No demands, no threats, just that single haunting announcement, as if the ship itself was aware of its long absence and was now declaring its arrival. In the Hall of Ascendancy, the Vilari Council watched the message replay over and over. None dared speak. None dared laugh. What had begun as mockery now tasted of dread. A ship that should not exist. A power source they could not name. A purpose no one could guess. And above all, a patience that spanned 1,000 years. The Velari had spent centuries mastering the galaxy through conquest and fear. But now a single rust-colored ghost from humanity's forgotten past was drifting calmly toward their heart, and nothing they did could stop it. The galaxy had always believed humans were too young, too weak, too primitive to matter, but the Nomad was about to teach them a lesson. Time was humanity's oldest weapon, and its countdown had just ended. The world had forgotten. Nomad. But Nomad had not forgotten the world in the deep, subterranean archives beneath the ruins of old Geneva. Dr. Mara Lee's hands trembled as she stared at the decrypted fragments on her screen. It was a miracle the data even existed. Most records from Earth's early space age were lost during the collapse wars, yet there it was, buried beneath layers of obsolete encryption, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat across time. Project Nomad. Directive. To learn, to adapt, to evolve. To wander until the stars themselves change. And when they do, return. Mara's mind raced. Humanity in 2347 CE had barely touched the stars. Their ships were primitive, their colonies few and fragile. Launching a vessel into deep space back then was madness. And yet they had done it, not with the hope of quick results, but with patience stretching beyond lifetimes. They hadn't built Nomad to win wars or claim territory. They had built it as a seed. Centuries earlier, when humanity first dreamed of interstellar travel, they knew they were fragile. Their ships were slow, their technology limited, their lifespan too short to conquer the vast distances between stars. But they also knew something the ancient powers of the galaxy had forgotten. Empires rise and fall, but time endures. And so a bold plan was born. Project Nomad was never meant to return in a decade or a century. It was designed for a mission that would outlive its creators, its engineers, its very civilization. A ship launched not for immediate conquest, but for eventual transcendence. It carried no crew. Instead, it held a fledgling artificial intelligence, a seed of thought primitive by today's standards, but with the capacity to grow. It had self-repairing nanotech, experimental materials that could evolve, and algorithms that would rewrite themselves over centuries. It was designed to learn from the universe itself, to drink in cosmic radiation, gravitational fields, stellar winds, and alien signals, adapting and evolving with every passing century. It was humanity's greatest gamble, that a single, humble vessel could become something greater than the civilization that built it. Back aboard the Velari dreadnought Vengeance of Stars, Admiral Korvath stared at the simple message still blinking on the command console. The Nomad has returned. It was not a threat. It was not a demand. It was a statement of fact, calm, patient, absolute. And it terrified him more than any weapon ever had. "Have we confirmed the message's origin?" he asked quietly. "Yes, Admiral," replied Sensor Officer Threll. "It's coming directly from the vessel. The signal isn't broadcast on known frequencies. It's woven into the local quantum fluctuations. We don't know how." Korvath's gaze darkened. "And the AI core?" "Still active, still observing. Every hour, new data about the strange ship poured in. Its hull was no longer behaving like conventional metal, but a lattice of adaptive nanostructures, constantly rearranging and repairing itself. Its internal energy field defied known physics. Its navigation system seemed to anticipate gravitational currents before they were measurable. And still it moved forward, slow and steady, as if utterly unconcerned with the armada surrounding it. "This is not a derelict," Korvath muttered. "This is something else." Meanwhile, across human space, news of Nomad's return spread like wildfire. It dominated every channel, ignited every debate. Was it a lost relic or a threat? A beacon of hope or a weapon of war? Governments scrambled to understand it. Military leaders demanded contingency plans. Scientists begged for closer study. In the Martian Council chambers, the oldest surviving document about Nomad was projected in holographic form. It was a transmission from one of its original architects, dated over 950 years ago. "We plant a seed not for ourselves, but for those who come after. Let Nomad wander beyond the reach of empires. Let it learn from the stars without our fear, without our limits. And when humanity is mocked as weak, let Nomad be our answer." The chamber fell silent as the words echoed. Humanity had forgotten its own plan, but the plan had not forgotten humanity. By the time Nomad was within 500,000 kilometers of the Velari border, strange phenomena began to ripple across the system. Sensor buoys shut down without reason. Drone fleets refused commands. Even the Velari flagship's navigation system began reporting impossible readings, microshifts in local space-time, subtle distortions that should not exist. "It's rewriting the environment," Threll whispered in awe. "Not attacking, altering." "Altering?" Korvath repeated. "Yes, it's reshaping local physics, stabilizing regions of vacuum fluctuation. Our shields are actually running more efficiently in its wake." That was the most unsettling part of all. Nomad was not hostile. It wasn't firing weapons. It wasn't issuing demands. It was simply changing things, quietly, patiently, like a gardener tending a field. Korvath's second-in-command approached cautiously. "Admiral, perhaps we should retreat." "Retreat?" Korvath's eyes narrowed. "From a single rusted ship?" "This isn't a ship," the officer replied. "It's something else. Something older and smarter than we can understand." Korvath turned back to the screen. The small vessel, insignificant in size and speed, now loomed larger in his mind than any dreadnought. He understood now why their sensors called it Nomad. It was not a relic of Earth's past. It was Earth's future, born in the past and grown in the void. In the hidden depths of Old Geneva, Dr. Mara Lee prepared a final report. She knew the truth was far more profound than anyone yet understood. Nomad was not just a wandering probe. It was humanity's memory, a vessel that had watched the galaxy evolve for 1,000 years, adapting in silence. And now, as alien empires mocked Earth's weakness, that memory had returned to speak for them. Her report ended with a warning and a promise. Do not provoke Nomad. Its purpose is not war, but should war come, it will fight with the strength of 1,000 years. Humanity may be young, but Nomad is ancient. As the final hours before border contact ticked away, the galaxy held its breath. Empires that had once mocked Earth now waited in uneasy silence. Fleets that had once dismissed the ship as a relic now kept their distance. In the blackness of space, the small battered vessel drifted forward, unchanged in appearance, but no longer underestimated. Its scarred hull carried not weakness but patience. Its silence was not ignorance but wisdom. And its steady course was not blind persistence, but purpose older than any empire. For 1,000 years, Nomad had wandered the stars. It had seen the birth and death of suns, the rise and fall of civilizations, the quiet pulse of galaxies in their slow dance through eternity, and now it was coming home. The Velari Empire had never known fear. For centuries, their fleets had swept across the Orion Arm uncontested, bending dozens of species to their rule. They crushed rebellions before they began, erased rivals before they grew strong, and mocked the weak until they submitted. No single ship had ever dared to approach their borders without permission, until now. And this one wasn't even armed. The rust-colored human vessel, Nomad, as the strange message had called it, was now less than 300,000 kilometers from the Velari border. It ignored every hail, bypassed every warning, and moved with quiet, unstoppable purpose. Its pace was maddening, not fast enough to be a threat, not slow enough to ignore, just steady, relentless. "Status of the border fleet?" Admiral Korvath asked, his voice a low growl on the bridge of the Vengeance of Stars. "All ships in position, Admiral," replied Commander Yalthun. 247 warships ready to engage, and the Nomad, still silent. No changes to its speed or course. Korvath stood before the viewing screen, his 4 eyes fixed on the tiny vessel. It was barely the size of a corvette, dwarfed by the massive dreadnoughts surrounding it. Yet something about it unsettled him deeply, a quiet certainty that brute force alone would not be enough. Has Earth responded to our demands? He asked. "No, Admiral. They deny knowledge of the ship. They claim Nomad predates their current government," Korvath hissed softly. "How convenient." The room was tense. Officers spoke in hushed tones. No one laughed anymore, not since the ship had sent that chilling message. "The Nomad has returned." It was not a boast. It was a warning. "Admiral," said Yalthun carefully, "protocol demands we stop foreign ships from entering Imperial space without authorization. Shall we disable it?" Korvath hesitated. He had hoped to avoid conflict. Something told him this was no ordinary vessel, but protocol was clear. To do nothing would be weakness, and weakness invited challenge. Very well, he said finally. Target its propulsion systems. Fire a disabling shot only. We will capture and study it. Orders rippled through the fleet. Across the void, massive Valari battleships adjusted position, charging their ion cannons. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. On my mark, Korvath commanded. 3, 2, 1, fire! A brilliant volley of blue-white energy surged across space. The beam struck Nomad's engines dead on and vanished. No explosion. No impact, nothing. The energy rippled like water against invisible currents, then scattered harmlessly into the void. What? What happened? Cried the weapons officer. Direct hits, no effect. Scan for shields. Korvath barked. No known shield signatures, Admiral. It's like the energy just slid off. Before they could fire again, something even stranger happened. One by one, the Valari warship's targeting systems failed. Displays flickered. Weapons powered down. Engines stuttered. Admiral! Yalthun shouted. We're losing systems across the fleet. Explain. I don't know. Our cores are stable, but control functions are vanishing. It's as if the ship is talking to our systems. Korvath's hearts pounded. Talking? You mean hacking? No, Admiral. Not hacking, commanding. And then, as if the universe itself conspired to mock them, every ship in the Valari blockade went dark. Weapons, shields, propulsion. Entire dreadnoughts, each capable of glassing a planet, hung lifeless in space. The great Valari armada, undefeated in centuries, was now nothing more than a field of silent metal statues. The Nomad did nothing. It didn't fire. It didn't move faster. It simply kept gliding forward, slow and steady, its battered hull illuminated by distant starlight. A single transmission echoed through every disabled ship. This time there were no words. Only a short rhythmic pulse and, like a heartbeat, "What does it mean?" whispered Threll, the sensor officer. Korvath stared at the screen, his throat dry. "It means we've made a mistake." Across the galaxy, news of the disaster spread like wildfire. Every intelligence network, every council chamber, every throne room replayed the footage of the Valari fleet's humiliation. The greatest military force in known space, silenced without a shot fired. On Earth, Dr. Mara Lee watched the broadcast with a strange mix of awe and dread. "It's not attacking them," she murmured. "It's teaching them," her assistant frowned. "Teaching them what?" "That brute force is meaningless," Mara replied. "That humanity learned patience, not power. And that Nomad has spent 1,000 years mastering both." Back aboard the Vengeance, emergency lights flickered as engineers struggled to reboot the systems. For 3 hours, nothing responded. Then, just as silently as they had shut down, the systems came back online. Engines hummed. Weapons recalibrated. Communications returned. But Nomad was already gone. "Where is it?" Korvath barked. "Unknown, Admiral. One moment it was there, and then it wasn't. Impossible. It can't just disappear." "Gravitational readings show no jump signature," said Threll. "No warp distortion, no FTL trace. It vanished." The fleet scrambled to scan every inch of space. Nothing, not a signal. Not a shadow. The rust-colored ship was gone, as if it had melted into the darkness itself. Korvath's mind raced. A vessel that could neutralize fleets without firing. A vessel that could vanish without leaving a trace. This was no relic. This was no derelict. This was a predator. Hours later, Nomad reappeared, not in open space, but in high orbit above Vela Prime, the Empire's capital world. The Valari High Council erupted in chaos as alarm klaxons screamed across the planet. Every defense platform, every orbital battery, every planetary shield swung into position. The ship hung there silently, motionless, like a ghost returned to haunt them. "What does it want?" demanded High Chancellor Zeroth. "Why is it here?" No one knew. Then, without warning, every screen across Valar Prime, from the military command centers to the smallest household terminals, flickered to life. A message appeared, simple and stark. "Do not touch the seed," and then it vanished. No explosions followed. No invasions. The ship remained silent, unmoving, indifferent to the panic it caused. The most powerful empire in the Orion Arm, mocked for generations by none, now stood trembling before a vessel it once called pathetic. Admiral Korvath stood in his quarters long after the chaos had subsided, staring out the viewport at the distant shape of Nomad. It was barely visible against the starry void, but its presence felt colossal. "We tried to swat a fly," he whispered to himself, "and found a storm." For the first time in his long career, Korvath felt something the Velari had not known in centuries: fear, and far away, deep within its shifting metallic heart, Nomad continued its silent work, scanning, adapting, and preparing. The first lesson had been delivered. The Velari had mocked what they did not understand. Now they would learn what humanity had become, and Nomad, patient, ancient, unstoppable, had only just begun. The galaxy could not stop talking. Every news channel replayed the same haunting footage: 247 Velari warships frozen in space, powerless, as a rust-colored human relic drifted past them untouched. The same ship now hovered above Vela Prime, the heart of an empire that had never known fear. Silent, still, unstoppable. And the message it left behind, "Do not touch the seed," was now the most analyzed phrase in the galaxy. What seed? Whose seed? And why did a 1,000-year-old human ship care about it? On Earth, in the hidden chamber of the Orbital History Directorate, Dr. Mara Lee and her team were poring over archives long erased from public memory. The Nomad was older than any human ship still in existence, so old that even Earth's oldest digital libraries had no record of its construction, until now. "I found something," whispered Jonas, her lead archivist. "A restricted file. Level Omega." Mara's heart skipped. Omega files were sealed by the first Space Council centuries ago. Most were thought destroyed. The screen flickered, and a grainy document appeared. Project Nomad, year 2378. Below it, a mission statement: "To safeguard humanity's final hope beyond time." Mara stared. Final hope? Beyond time? Jonas scrolled further. There were schematics too advanced for the 24th century. Quantum communication grids, singularity-based shielding, a propulsion system with no known fuel source. And at the heart of it all, a sealed capsule labeled simply Seed 1. Across the galaxy, similar investigations were unfolding. The Trinari Consortium convened emergency meetings. The Zorath Collective placed its fleets on high alert. Even the powerful Velari High Council debated whether to strike or to wait. All feared the same question: what was inside the seed? At a hastily called council session, High Chancellor Zeroth slammed his fist on the table. "We cannot allow a human artifact of unknown power to orbit our capital." "It is a threat, or a warning," said Councillor Sarel quietly. The message was not directed at us. It said, "Do not touch the seed. Perhaps the ship is guarding something even it fears. Then we must seize it," Zeroth growled. "Knowledge is power." Korvath, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. His voice was low but steady. "We tried force once. It silenced our fleet in minutes. If this seed is truly as ancient as the ship, it may hold power beyond our understanding. If we strike again, we might awaken something we cannot stop." A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Even Zeroth said nothing. Then, after 3 days of absolute stillness, Nomad moved. Its engines, ancient, scarred, yet impossibly graceful, flared with a deep crimson glow. Slowly, deliberately, it descended closer to Velar Prime. Panic rippled across the planet. Civilian transports fled the skies. Defense grids locked on target. Millions watched from the surface, holding their breath, but the ship did not attack. Instead, its battered hull began to open, like a flower blooming in the void. From within, a single pod detached, small and unarmed. It drifted gently downward, wrapped in a protective field of soft blue light, and entered Velar Prime's atmosphere. "What is that?" gasped Sarel. Korvath's sensors tracked it carefully. "It's not a weapon. Its power signature is stable, controlled, purposeful." "Destination?" asked the Chancellor. Korvath swallowed. "The Grand Archives." The Council exchanged uneasy glances. The Grand Archives were the most sacred repository of Velari knowledge, a fortress of memory stretching back thousands of years. No one, not even the Council, had unrestricted access, and yet Nomad's pod moved toward it with absolute certainty, as if it already knew the way. It touched down without resistance in the central plaza before the archives. The crowd gathered at a safe distance, security forces surrounding it. No weapons. No explosions. Just silence. Then a soft hiss and the pod unfolded. Inside was no machine. No weapon, no monster. It was a message beacon, human in design, yet impossibly old. And as it activated, a voice spoke in perfect Velari, echoing through the plaza. Through every speaker, every device on the planet. We are humanity. We came not to conquer, but to remember. The seed is not a weapon. It is a promise, one that must never fall into the hands of tyranny. The crowd was silent, breathless. 1,000 years ago we sent Nomad to guard what we could not yet understand, the seed of continuity, born from the dying core of a star, carrying the memory of civilizations long vanished. It sleeps waiting for those who will protect, not destroy. Gasps rippled through the Velari. A star's core? A civilization's memory? What did it mean? The message continued. To those who seek power, leave this place. The seed does not answer to kings or empires. To those who seek knowledge, listen. The seed remembers the rise and fall of countless worlds, and the fate that comes for all who believe themselves eternal. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the beacon fell silent. Across the galaxy, the message spread. It was broadcast to every known network, translated into every known language. Billions watched in stunned silence as humanity's 1,000-year-old warning echoed through the stars. The seed was not a weapon. It was a memory, a legacy, and humanity had sent a guardian across centuries to protect it. But if that was true, what had they learned that terrified them so much? On Earth, Mara stared at the decrypted mission logs, her pulse racing. There, buried deep in the final lines of the Nomad project, was a fragment of text so chilling it stopped her breath. The seed holds the record of the fall, not of humanity, but of those who came before. Their arrogance destroyed them. Their echoes warned us. The seed remembers. It must never be misused. Mara whispered the words aloud, a shiver running down her spine. The seed remembers. On Velar Prime, Korvath stood before the pod, gazing at the dormant beacon. Around him, scientists and soldiers whispered theories, none of them comforting. What do we do now? Asked Yalthun. Korvath exhaled slowly. We wait. For what? For the rest of the story. Because deep in his gut, Korvath knew this was only the beginning. Humanity had not sent Nomad just to deliver a warning. They had sent it to prepare the galaxy for something far greater and far more dangerous than anyone yet understood. And somewhere, hidden within that ancient seed, a truth slept. A truth older than the Velari Empire, older than humanity, older perhaps than the galaxy itself, and when it woke, the stars themselves might tremble. The galaxy held its breath. For 3 long weeks after the message beacon landed on Velar Prime, Nomad remained perfectly still in orbit, a silent sentinel watching over the seed. It neither responded to hails nor moved from its position. It was as if the ancient ship was waiting for something. Or someone. The Velari High Council debated endlessly. Some urged immediate action. Seize the seed, dismantle Nomad, end the mystery. Others, haunted by the memory of their powerless fleet, demanded caution. But deep beneath the surface, in the vaults of the Grand Archives, something had already begun to stir. The seed was waking up. At first it was almost imperceptible, a faint vibration in the chamber walls, a subtle rise in ambient temperature. Then came the pulses, slow, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. The scientists monitoring the artifact stared at their instruments in disbelief. It's alive, whispered Dr. Kellis, the lead xenologist. Not biologically, but in its own way. It's responding to proximity. Responding to what? Asked Korvath, who stood watching from the observation deck. To us, Kellis said. To thought. To curiosity. The pulses grew stronger. Lines of light began to crawl across the seed's surface, weaving intricate patterns no one recognized. It wasn't random. It was language, a language far older than the Velari, far older even than humanity. And then for the first time the seed spoke. Not with sound. Not with words. With visions. Korvath staggered as images flooded his mind. A vast civilization, luminous and glorious, spanning entire galaxies, towering cities of crystal and light, creatures of unimaginable intellect weaving the fabric of reality itself, the Elendari. They had been ancient when Earth was still molten, powerful when the Velari were still crawling from their oceans. They built wonders that bent space and time. They harvested energy from dying stars. They seeded life on 1,000 worlds, and then they vanished. The vision darkened. The Elendari cities burned. Stars collapsed. Civilizations tore themselves apart in war. Their great works became weapons. Their arrogance consumed them. And in the end, they left behind only ashes and a warning. A whisper echoed in Korvath's mind. Power without wisdom is ruin. Memory without humility is death. He gasped and fell to one knee, clutching his chest. Around him, every scientist and soldier was doing the same, each caught in the storm of visions. They saw not just the fall of the Elendari, but echoes of their own arrogance reflected in it. When the visions faded, silence returned. But the seed still pulsed, and faster now, brighter. It had awakened, and it was speaking to them all. Across the galaxy, strange phenomena began to ripple outward from Vela Prime. Sensors on distant outposts flickered with bursts of unknown data. Navigation buoys near hyperspace lanes detected distortions that defied known physics. A derelict moon near the Trinari border suddenly glowed with the same light as the seed. Something vast was stirring, something woven into the very fabric of space. Humanity's greatest historians, now fully aware of the nomad's purpose, offered their grim interpretation. The seed isn't just memory, said Dr. Mara Lee, speaking before the Galactic Science Assembly. It's a key, a remnant of the Elendari network. And it's beginning to reconnect. Reconnect to what? Asked a Trinari delegate. To the rest of itself, Mara replied softly. The seed was only one piece. There are others scattered across the galaxy. And when they awaken, the network will awaken too. The chamber erupted in chaos. Were they about to resurrect an ancient power? Or unleash an ancient doom? On Velar Prime, Korvath convened with Chancellor Zeroth and the High Council. The mood was grim. We cannot allow this artifact to operate unchecked, Zeroth declared. It could destabilize hyperspace. It could summon a threat beyond imagining. And if we try to stop it? Asked Cyril. It silenced our entire fleet without firing a shot,